So we're currently living through a birth rate crisis that's happening globally, unfortunately. Briefly covered this on previous podcast episodes with guests. I'm going to play a YouTube video today that goes into quite a good detail about this very subject. I will let the video discuss for us, and I'll chime in here and there. Basically, doing a YouTube reaction podcast today, okay? But birth rate crisis is a legitimate crisis affecting a lot of us globally. So, with that being due, let's begin.
This is how civilizations die.
How is it going to affect us?
It is going to be a shock, a huge shock, when our generation ages and there's no one there to do important services.
It's going to create a housing crisis.
Feminism did change the memes and the culture. But at the same time, no one talks about when you introduce birth control into a society, in a couple generations, that means that our population has shrunk by half.
If you say you're a stay-at-home mom, it's like it's frowned upon in a lot of areas in the country. And it's like, how bad is our birth decline?
Oh, it is shockingly bad. So we are now at 1.6 for a woman. Our replacement rate is 2.1.
I thought we were at 2.1.
It's been about I think 8 years that we passed the 2.1, and then there was a mild uptick in COVID. So people were hopeful. They were thinking, well, maybe it was just an anomaly those last few years. But then there was a steep decline since COVID as well.
And for reference, number one, I'm playing the video at 1.25x speed for timing purposes to get through it a little bit quicker. And I apologize if it's a bit fast for viewers. And number two is what she means by 2.1. She means the WHO determines the replacement rate, okay, for a population is 2.1 babies per woman. That is the WHO standard for replacement rate, as in producing enough children to have future generations for any said country. And right now she's talking about America, but I'm sure she'll expand to globally too.
So yeah, we're at 1.6, and the millennials. I mean, the millennial generation, I think it's something like, we're older millennials. We're like, I think it's 1980 to 1986 is called the elder millennial generation.
It's my generation.
Something like 58% of us have children. That's the lowest in history. So it is going to be a shock, a huge shock, when our generation ages and there's no one there to do important services. I mean, like there's a lot of not only economic reasons, but just like the social fabric of what's about to happen of not having children. I mean, this is how civilizations die.
Let's go into it. How is it going to affect us?
So
this isn't something I've talked about.
Yeah. So one, it's the economic situation is going to get very bad. When you think of, the boomers are the largest, I think, generational cohort. They're living longer than they ever have. They're healthier, but they're getting to ages, right? Like, who takes care of boomers when they're in their 80s and 90s? They're in nursing homes. You need service workers. You need people to be able to take care of these aging people, right? It used to be that you were taken care of in the family. We don't do that anymore. Now we have nursing homes, right? Like, it's very rare that someone moves in when they're at a certain age with their children and are taken care of.
I think we should bring that back. I think my generation, but honestly, anyone whose family and parents are getting older, I really think they should consider moving them in with them, taking care of them. Okay, just for economic reasons and for just being a good family member. I understand it's hard. I know I've been through that, but family is everything for sure. And she's right that. So I'm millennial, as you probably know, and she's just said 58% only are having children. So over 40% are not, essentially. So yeah, not looking good. And for important services, right? Who's going to be the nursing home, workers and hospital workers and so forth if certain generations are not filling that role? Very important. But yeah, let's continue.
So those jobs, which used to be filled by service workers, there's no one who's going to be able to fill that. On every economic dimension, if you do not have a generation of workers, of people paying into the system, Social Security, I mean, Social Security is a huge issue, but if you don't have people paying into the system, doing the labor, being able to do the things for the elder generation, society starts crumbling. And then there's, of course, the social ramifications of not having families. I'm a firm believer that the most important institution in America is the family. The family used to exist to take care of the people who were weakest, right? Like, it's like, you used to have these big families, and, sometimes the weakest child would still be living with mom and dad at home, and that was okay. You sort of had empathy for them, but it was the family's responsibility to take care of these people. We quickly moved that to now it's the state's responsibility to take care of these people who...
I'm going to say, I'm happy to say in the Asian culture, especially the South Asian culture, which I'm I'm part of, I'm born in, and I'm blessed to be. There is such a large emphasis on family, and trust me, you're talking to someone that couldn't wait to get away from family, couldn't wait to be on his own, and I'm telling you, life is not better at all without family in your life. Especially family nearby, especially family who's willing to be there for you and taking care of you when times get tough. So we do have the benefit. South Asian culture has the benefit of the emphasis of family in the first place. Are there like bad apples? Are there branches that die off? Yes, that happens. But she's 100% right. That's not necessarily the American culture as a whole of keeping family units together throughout their whole life, right? Usually, people move away in their early 20s and maybe visit parents or families like a couple times a year or so forth. So, in regards to that, totally agree. It's something that the American culture could benefit from. Let's continue.
Who maybe sick in some way, maybe unable to provide for themselves in some way, might have psychological issues. Now the state has to take care of them, which is why you see a lot of these people on the street now, because the state does a terrible job of taking care of these people. But as fewer and fewer children exist, it's like you're not going to have a society that can provide for itself, that can continue into perpetuity. And the exponential decline of this too, where it's like it sounds, oh well, we went from 2.1 to 1.6. That can't be that bad. I mean, in a couple of generations, that means that our population has shrunk by half.
In a couple of generations.
Yeah, and the best example of this, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me, is South Korea. So South Korea, I think their birth rate is the lowest of any country, any industrialized country. I think it's 0.9.
This is the most dire of all the news when it comes to fertility crisis. Okay, this is the most dire. She's going to talk about South Korea. I was just talking about this on previous podcasts. It's an emergency. It is a global emergency because essentially less than what on average less than one baby per woman is being born right now in South Korea. There could not be a South Korea in a few generations if that doesn't turn around really fast. Okay, that's the very opposite of a population boom. It's the opposite. So population decline. Okay, and just like she said, it's less than one. I don't know if it's 0.9 or 0.7, but there's a multitude of reasons. Maybe she'll go into them. A friend of mine mentioned like they have a very strict culture of studying, taking education seriously. Maybe not so much importance of their mental health or exploring their hobbies or whatever it is. I understand it's very competitive, and economically, obviously, it's really difficult. If you watch Squid Games, you are aware of that. So, yeah, this is really dire. Really, I was preaching this or trying to point this out on a previous episode, but let's listen to further.
And when you have fewer and fewer people, no one's doing the jobs. Japan is also heading this way. Their birth rate's quite low. The only sort of argument that people make as sort of the bright side of this that could potentially make up for both the labor loss and also just the civilizational collapse is robotics, right? Like you could have robots do a lot of these jobs. But I think it is a very dangerous thing to say we're going to depend on automation and robotics to make up for the fact that humans are disappearing.
I mean, even China's dealing with this. They had the one-child birth
Yes.
policy, and then they boarded all of the girls.
Yep.
So now they just
Yes.
have
Extremely short-sighted. And
Yeah, China's one-child policy, unfortunately, has done the opposite of what they wanted, or maybe it was too effective. But yeah, they were facing, I guess, overpopulation like crazy, like because they're at 2 billion or whatever now. But now that one-child policy is unfortunately biting them in the butt really bad now, and that was something you can't really foresee 40 50 years ago, or 20 30 years ago. So anyway, I'm gonna let her talk about that. But yeah, I remember that in my lifetime from early age that was a big part of China, right, because of how fast the population. But yeah, let's continue.
and I think the bulk we're always talking about how dangerous China is, how China is growing in power and importance. The most short-sighted thing they have ever done to their society that will eventually catch up with them is the demographic collapse that they are going to feel because of one child. Like they're trying everything now too. They're trying to end divorce, right? Like so there's now a policy, at least that I read about in China, where you have to have like a 90-day cool down period so that you don't divorce. They're trying to encourage young women to have children. Young women don't want to have
they're
children.
bringing in women from other countries, from what I understand.
Yeah.
And I'm glad she said that because divorce rates are so high in the West. Okay, they're over 55% right now. So combined with the fact that a lot of people are not even dating or having such a hard time dating in general, American wide, nationwide, and beyond, dating apps have taken over social media. Um, yeah, and not to mention that a lot of marriages end in divorce, and if it's over 55%, 60%, like that, where's the incentive of getting married or having babies, right? That's it's gonna blow it out of the water. So now, props to China if they're mandating that you can't just get divorced unless you really qualify and go through all these steps, like a cool down period and everything. I think that's a major plus because we used to there's the divorce laws used to be so liberal and so nonchalant, and for any reason you can just end the divorce. And unfortunately, speaking for men, they get screwed over most of the time. They get kind of great, and they lose more than 50% of their wealth. And even if wife didn't contribute all that much or whatever financially, but I mean, that is a statistic here. But yeah, let's continue.
They're sending them out to go find wives in the Philippines, Thailand,
Yeah.
Japan, everywhere.
Yeah. But they recognize it's a massive problem, and probably recognized it before even we did. I think in some ways the conversation sort of hopped from the social conservative sort of church going movement of gosh, like this is a huge problem, to sort of the I would say the sort of techno optimist Elon Musk talking about the birth rate as a big deal. It's now become sort of I think an issue that's okay for polite society and sort of liberal New York Times to be talking about, like this is actually a real issue. So first step is acknowledging it, but it is 1.6 is a long way to come back from, especially with a millennial generation that waited way too long to have children.
Millennial here. I can concur, especially being single as a Pringle at age 36, to my family's chagrin, and not just me, but a vast majority of my generation for sure. It's a new phenomenon. It's never happened before, uh, because of the convergence of technology, social media, apps, how we interact regularly. There's no more meeting someone in person at school. It used to be you can have a relationship or meet someone at school or at I mean, maybe work, I guess, but usually school, family, friend, work, and that would be most folks getting in relationships. But now, a lot of people don't get through that way relationships, and now they're looking for. Now you're just anywhere and everywhere. But unfortunately, dating apps and social media has flipped it on its script, right? And so that's affected my generation and the next Gen Z and so forth, right? So yeah, it's not for a lack of trying. I would say I doubt what she's trying to get at is like nobody's trying at all. No one has ever tried, and you're talking to someone who has traveled to date women, who has traveled to multiple states, multiple cities, multiple times, spent money on travel and flights and hotels and dinners and so forth. So effort has to be made, but it has to be reciprocated, right? If it's a relationship is meant to be, or two people are really want it to be together, it has to be reciprocated and work together on, right? So yeah, so but my generation for sure is the first to kind of like not settle down too young and just kind of enjoy and with the convergence of everything. But yeah, I can attest to that, but it's not for a lack of trying, I will say. But anyway, let's see what else we got.
I think the kind of there's a couple underlying is 1.6 is a long way to come back from, especially with a millennial generation that waited way too long to have children. I think the kind of there's a couple underlying factors that I don't think we talk enough about that have caused this. Is when you look at sort of our parents' generation, a lot of people didn't go to college. They started adulthood at 18, and sort of the sort of fertile window you could say for women was between 18 and 40. Say like that was sort of the nominal window of when you could have children, and it was socially.
Honestly, it's between 18 and 30 if we're being real. It's not I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist, but I've done a lot of research. There's a lot of data to back this up, but a woman's peak fertility window is actually between 18 and 24, 25, because starting from age 33 or so forth, you're reaching what's called geriatric pregnancy. so it's harder to even have a child for a female in general. I'm not a biologist, but there's a lot of data behind that. And I think after 35, I mean, you are really shooting for the fences now, um, as a woman. Now it's not the same for a man, but don't shoot the messenger. That's just biology. I didn't. We we're not responsible for our biology. It is what it is. But um, yeah, so she's right. Our parents' generation definitely got married younger. I know my parents did. God bless them. Most older generation, baby boomer and Gen X, got married much younger, and there's never been a generation before mine, millennial and after, to be unmarried so late in life. But yeah, that's a sign of the times. So welcome in 2025. Let's continue.
acceptable. And then we had this incredible push against fertility and against having a family young that I think the millennials really caught wind of. It's like everyone needs to go to college, uh, extended adolescence, like use your 20s to experiment and enjoy life. Like you don't really need to be focused on having a family. And what happened is the average age now of a first time, I think, mother in America is 28. So 10 years after that, 18. So you've cut the window in half. The average age of a first time father in America, I think, is 31. And that's for both college educated and not college educated. If you add on college on that, which I think is a real issue, it's even higher. It's like the average age of a first time mother is 30. So you can understand how the birth
That's crazy. The more college educated a person is, statistically, the older they become when they are first time parents. That's actually insane. You wouldn't think that's the case, but it's totally true in your 20s, and I can attest to that because you're really exploring yourself. I don't think you really know yourself at all in your 20s. Because you have certain friends and you just hang out with them and you just do whatever they do because you're all friends. Now, maybe you're a part of a mission. Maybe you're trying to build something, build a business, or you have really big goals you're trying to aim after, and it doesn't matter the friends as much. But if you're hanging out with friends and going out regularly and just having and enjoying, you're not really concerned about starting a family. It's not your top priority. And a lot of my generation, I can speak for, we certainly do. We certainly did that. And I know I did that, but that's not to say I didn't try for sure to make it work. And it's not for lack of trying. I'm sure a lot of my generation has tried that, but she's absolutely correct. The priorities are completely shifted from previous generations because from a young age of 20, early 20s or whatever, people were already getting married and having babies, like our parents' generation, just not even close to the same for my generation or later. So, yeah, I totally can attest to that.
rates being cut in half if the entire window of when you can have children is cut in half because people are so focused on career and finding themselves and sort of their extended adolescence rather than focusing on building a family earlier. You're just going to have fewer children, and then when you have fewer marriages, that also cuts it. So it's fewer people getting married, fewer people are going to decide to have children, which from a millennial perspective, to have 58% of people only having kids, I mean, that's compared to, what 89% of our parents' generation had children.
Wow. Do you know if the baby boomer generation is
Hashtag 1989 LOL. Even though she's talking about 89% of our parents' generation had kids at the same age or later, or earlier. So, yeah, man. 58% of my generation by this time have kids, which roughly means 42% don't, and I'm one of them. But that being said, I can't wait to be father. I'd love to be. I believe that's an important calling. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about like a time period where the culture says be yourself. Don't let anyone tell you who you are, which yes, to an extent, I agree. And, but the problem is they take modern culture takes away like purpose in life. Modern culture takes away purpose. Modern culture takes away like belief in religion or God or higher power or whatever. It takes it away from our generation, so then we can only focus on like kind of like hedonistic pleasures or pursuing pleasures of any kind mostly, right? Because YOLO, Mr. Drake, you only live once, which was a funny tagline. And okay, sure, we did kind of YOLO fun back in the day when we were partying in college. But I mean, yeah, like life goes on, like priorities change, priorities shift, right? You can't if you're still partying in your 40s and 50s and you're not fully, um, you don't have goals in life, or you're not even trying, or like you're lost. That's a lost person. So nobody wants to be like that. That being said, a lot of norms have changed, societal norms, a more pursuit on individualism, and kind of like defining what purpose is for you and so forth. But in general, our culture does not promote that concept of purpose. It promotes just have fun, just find yourself, explore, move around, do whatever, right? So, but yeah, without purpose, life has almost no meaning.
Are they still the biggest?
I believe they're still the biggest. Yeah,
So this has always been a question about that I've had. Is just
89% of our parents' generation had children.
wow. Is the baby? Do you know if the baby boomer generation is are they still the biggest?
I believe they're still the biggest. Yeah.
So this has always been a question about that I've had. Is just what it's just real estate, but I mean, you see all these 55 plus communities being built. I mean, you live in Florida. I came from Florida.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the villages is like, about the villages.
Yes. Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's
There's what is going to happen to all these 55 plus communities when that, when that massive generation dies off?
Yeah.
I mean, are we just going to have, it's going to create a housing crisis.
Yeah, I think it'll be a housing crisis, fewer people, and also like are millennials going to want to, the millennials and Gen X, or Gen X is actually a pretty small generation. Are they going to want to move into those places? Definitely not. In some ways, the bigger question I think is also, and I know you've had people on who've talked about longevity. People are living a lot longer too, which means they're going to have to work a lot longer, which means they have to be healthier for a lot longer. And so, if you have people living a lot.
This reminds me of high school, where we had projects or papers or something about how life could be in the next 30, 40, whatever years. And I remember a lot of students, classmates or whatever, like the whole mindset was, who cares what happens in 50, 60 plus years, because we won't be around, or whatever it is a long time in the future. Yeah. So without long-term thinking, like especially on a mass scale, like generationally speaking, that's going to impact future generations. That's going to impact the whole world in the future, and it's one thing if it's on an individual level, whatever. Yes, individually we're free, and we have to grow at our own pace. We move at our own pace, and you have to live life and go through experiences and figure out all that for yourself. But on a mass level, on a generational level, and now that's happening. Now we're facing crisis, because like she was saying, is the millennial generation ready to literally take over if there's a housing bubble of some kind from our previous generations, for whatever reason? Okay, that's a very good question.
Longer, and fewer people who are being born. It's just it's society inverts on itself. You have a very top-heavy society of people who are older, who can't do the work that needs to be done to actually protect the country.
Has any nation reversed this?
Not like I haven't seen anything recently successfully. There have been some attempts, like some people have pointed to countries like Hungary that are now paying. I think there's a policy in Hungary where if you have more than 4 children, you don't have to pay taxes. There's some extreme policies where you've seen that. The one anomaly in the Western world, or in the industrialized world, where they are well above birth rate replacement, is Israel. And so there's questions about, is it because it's a religious society? They have a pretty large religious Orthodox community, right? That kind of makes up for the rest of the secular society that doesn't have children. If you have a family of 8 and 9 and 10, that's 10% of your population. Then you can make up for some who are not having any.
And unfortunately, I'm one of many Americans that are not exactly pleased with the state of Israel at the moment. So I can't be supportive of that particular stat myself, especially as a fellow Muslim, given what's been going on politically over there and the violence against other Muslims, right? So anyway, not to get that political here, but in general, besides Israel, like Middle Eastern countries, countries with heavy religious presence, like Islam and what have you, and Christianity, like a very heavy emphasis. The emphasis is on family. Is on it's not on the individual. So they understand that in order for a society to thrive, you do need the family unit to grow, and you can't have family units growing without an emphasis on religion and belief system uh, to a belief system that captures the importance of long-term growth and long-term fulfillment and including family and prospering for all, right? So without religion and a huge religious presence in other countries, like you wouldn't see that as much. That's what you're seeing in US now. Is like it's not a big emphasis on a religion on a nationwide level. Yeah, on a community level, yes, right? And there's many communities, and there's millions of folks who are religious or a part of a religion, but it's not necessarily valued from a nationwide level, okay? And for a variety of reasons, but she's correct. The more religious a country tends to be, the more families they tend to have. That's for sure true.
But we don't have that in America. We don't have as many. I would say we have more than Europe, which Europe is really the
They're
continent
really on the decline, though.
really on the
I mean,
decline.
the Islamic population is reproducing at
Yes.
a massive rate.
Yes, but even counting immigrant and Islamic population in Europe, they're still at countries. I think Italy's 1.2. I think France is 1.5. Everyone always looks at the Nordic nations as sort of the beacon of how we should be doing policy in the U.S. because they pay for free healthcare for mothers. They pay for free IVF, different things that people say we should experiment with. Their population decline is worse than ours. They're at 1.2, 1.3, 1.5. And so I think what's fascinating to me about this is that this isn't a country specific problem. Or
1.5 babies per children. That's lower than America, like she said, and that is bad, man. So as you can see, different nations based on difference of culture, difference of their religious views, difference of politics, geopolitics, right? Difference of obviously geography, which is part of geopolitics, but all of that beyond. Having said, uh, it doesn't equate. There's like not a perfect formula for have a replacement rate other than the most basically just religious emphasis of a nation. Like she said, Islamic immigrants tend to multiply the population because there's emphasis of family. I know that's kind of weird for a single Muslim man to be speaking of, but I'm also part of this. I grew up in this culture, so I am a combination of those things, so that I can speak on that. But yeah, so it's affecting all countries, many countries, and now we have data on all that. So this is a big deal, and we really need to make this more widespread conversation to understand the gravity of it.
cultural specific problem. It's really all industrialized nations, and there's probably healthcare reasons for it. There's a lot of
Yeah, I
research about.
mean, I think men are 70% less, have a fertility rate of like 70% less than
Yes.
it was roughly about 100 years ago.
Yeah, sperm counts are down. The sort of fertile window for women again cut in half. It's so there's something about the medical side of this and the health side of this that's also happening, but you can't ignore the memes and sort of the cultural destruction that happened since the 1970s, in my opinion, which is family bad, individual good, right? Like you shouldn't have to sacrifice yourself for the needs of your family. And the minute.
And I'm gonna be honest, I grew up in my 20s with a more me first individual focus. Yes, I did. However, that shifted in my 30s for sure into the long term family focus. And I think everyone, you probably have heard that the most important decision you make is the person you marry, right? So you don't take that decision lightly. You shouldn't, and you really should be uh, understand what you're diving into and understand yourself, right? Before you make a huge leap like that. But it is a leap, obviously. That being said, in my 20s and a lot of my generation's 20s, and I know I partied with them. I know, is that it's just enjoy your life now. Worry about the future later. Just you don't really need to think about family now. Just like have fun. Go out, mingle, socialize, whatever. If you date, you date. Cool. If you're not, whatever. But I mean, no, we never really talked about families in my generation in my 20s. It was just like, people trying to hook up in social settings like bars and clubs and so forth, right? But now, at people who are my age, who are 35 plus, in this case 36, yeah, there's no more. Uh, that game is gone. That ship is sailed. Okay, like just trying to be individualistic and trying to not focus on future, unless you just don't care about the future. That's an individual issue, individual thing. But most people will have to face that fact because you're 30 plus now. So I don't blame folks. Don't That being said, I don't blame myself or anyone for taking their 20s to explore, experiment, understand themselves, understand others, find a purpose, go travel, do different things, whatever. No one's saying that's bad or you shouldn't do that, but there's obviously a long-term effect to everything, right? Like a downstream effect. And yeah, I'm happy to say I've grown from the specific individualistic and me first mentality into like long-term family first and focus only, because when you're thinking decades, when you're 70, 80, whatever, if all you have to look back on is all the fun parties you went to, or concerts you went to, or countries, like, that's not a legacy. That's just memories. A legacy is family and values and beliefs. That's a legacy that lives on after you, right? So yeah, God bless, man.
That people across the Western world started believing in sort of this like individualism. That's where you see just the family completely destroyed. And just fewer and fewer families means fewer and fewer children. And we're finally waking up to the consequences of that, which is a society that can't, grow its GDP. I mean, the economist version of this is it's a society that can't grow its GDP and that can't remain successful. But I think the human part of this is it's a dying society. It's a frail society.
I mean, how do we fix it? I mean,
I mean, I think you have to change the culture. I think you cannot change a spiritual and a cultural problem.
See, culture, keyword, comes back to culture. I don't know if that can happen, if that will. I for sure don't know if it will happen, but can it happen? Yes, but it's a massive shift culturally, and it impacts all over economically, especially in media. Okay, movies, music videos. If there's music videos, yeah, on YouTube, most of that is not family oriented, for sure. It's not appropriate for younger generation, number one. And then it's number two, it's certainly not promoting the value of family, or especially in your 20s, right? And you know why? One reason? Money. Very simple. You can make more money when everyone is spent have to earn a salary to pay their taxes more. Okay, so you're dividing like tax base, and that's like, she might touch on this. Feminism kind of did that, where okay, females don't have to are not subjecting themselves to just being a housewife forever, and they can work and make money themselves and take care of themselves and don't have to rely on a man. Okay, cool, do that. Now that you split the tax base, okay, and you multiplied it, and now you have fewer and fewer families. The divorce rate's still high, and unfortunately, the older you get, you don't really become a better option in many people's eyes. Okay, especially if you have baggage from other relationships, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, the culture is by far, I mean, the biggest shift that has to be made. I mean, there used to be shows like called 16 and Me, Teen Mom, MTV. I remember like watching that, like, man, these girls are kind of dumb, but other girls would love watching it and be like, oh my god, the drama. And I knew pregnant teenagers when I was a teenager too. It was weird. I grew up in a very conservative way, thank God, and yeah, I couldn't understand that. But I mean, I guess I dabbled more into liberalism later on. But anyway, the pendulum swings, right? So yeah, culture is number one. Okay, economy is all there. Technology is there, but it does come back all the way down to culture again.
With economic policies. So the sort of easy answers that a lot of economists and sort of people who study this say is, okay, well, we need to make healthcare free, make birth free, make women feel more, feel that they have more benefits, maybe pay women to do work, right? Like pay them to stay at home. And some of those ideas, like I could say, our healthcare system is expensive. It is expensive to have a baby in America. So making that cheaper on the margins, might affect a mother who says, okay, I have 2 children, maybe I want to have a third. But I actually think the bigger problem is cultural and spiritual.
I think it's the culture too. I mean, I think it stemmed from the feminist movement.
Yeah.
Where it was get out, get a job, provide for yourself. You can.
Exactly what I just said. Exactly what I just said. Unfortunately, feminism has way more negatives than positives. Okay, and I don't have the expertise or knowledge to go into detail about that, but I've seen enough evidence to support that it's done way more damage than good. Okay, and nobody's saying that we need to go back to the 50s and all women need to be housewives or whatever, like we were in the 50s or something in that golden era. Nobody's saying that, and that's probably too massive of a culture shift to even happen anyway. But they're gonna touch on it here a bit more. Unfortunately, way more negatives than positives, and that is reflected in our modern society, in the dating culture, in the lack of dating success for a majority of people, men and women. Okay, I mean, if you have people who meet all these criteria on society's level and they're still struggling, that tells you it's beyond just them, right? It's a global cultural thing. So there you go.
Do everything, which yes, but it deterred women from having children.
Yeah.
And then women that do have children, I mean, it's almost like, I mean, me and my wife talk about this all the time. If you say you're a stay-at-home mom, it's like it's frowned upon in a lot of areas in the country, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking, like frowning upon on a stay-at-home mom? I mean, what's more important than raising your kids?
Yeah.
And then I don't even know how single mothers do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the hardest job in the world.
It's you have to make it okay, and you have to take care of the single moms out there.
Totally.
It's scary.
Totally.
And I think about it. It's
There is so many single mothers online, or I mean, in today's world right now, way more than ever probably in history. I don't have any data or facts to support that, but I will say on dating apps, holy shit, 50% or more are like single moms, yo. Okay, like 50% of females that I come across on all dating platforms are for sure single mothers, and unfortunately, most men are not looking for single moms to settle down with. Okay, so that means raising a child that's not yours biologically, right? And there's a lot of content about that, but it's called it comes down to responsibility without authority. Okay, you're still responsible for your stepchild if you happen to get into a relationship with a single mom. You don't have the authority because you're not the biological parent, right? So single mom crisis also a part of this equation. Okay, there's no way to escape that. That is the cold hard truth, but we do need to bring it to light so that we can point this out and hopefully improve and heal this culture. So we're about to wrap up this video here, so let's finish this up.
It's terrifying. I don't know how they make ends meet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the culture change is paramount for that. But
a lot of the research, it's always fascinating to me, the things you can't talk about. We can talk about the problem, but there's certain things we can't talk about that add to it. And you'll see, economics is always a thing people want to talk about because it's like, oh, if we could just fix it with an economic policy. But no one ever talks about what you said, which is that feminism did change the memes and the culture. But at the same time, no one talks about when you introduce birth control into a society and tell women, you can control your own destiny. That is a huge part of it. Like all of these declines in the industrial world started at the exact same time that the pill was introduced. So, we're not going to go back to a world that is pre-pill. Like that's just never going to happen across, both Western society and the industrial world. But I think you actually have to acknowledge all of the factors. And the fact that a lot of the people doing this research won't even acknowledge, oh, something magical changed in the 60s and the 70s related to healthcare, related to how abortion was made legal in 1973. Other nations followed. When you look at those as inputs into the story as well, it's like there's a reason why the birth rate is so low in these countries.
no matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And
Absolutely. So that's called Feminism Changed Everything, Birth Rate Crisis. No one's talking about by the Shawn Ryan show. Literally, it's the birth rate crisis no one's talking about, and I'm here talking about and showing this to you. So, yeah, that's how important this is. That's how dire of a situation that is. Okay. Um, and yeah, final thoughts. I hope you liked. I hope you got some value out of this. But it is actually a crisis that, and we have to agree on that. Number one, to even find any resolution, it does stem from a lot of factors, but mostly being cultural in nature, as they mentioned, and yeah, and she towards the end they're correct that the birth control pill, um, for the most part, is beneficial, but you see the long term effects of that, where you can have like consequence free sex, and yeah, that's there's a lot of evidence to show that it messes with hormones and it does some internal damage to females or whatever it is. But yeah, so that's we're not going back to a world before that. Not saying that, but it's had a major impact on society as a whole, culture, and unfortunately with the birth rate crisis. So yeah, I'm gonna make more videos regarding this topic because it's of utmost paramount importance in my eyes. Okay, I'm certainly gonna do my part. Being a father is really important to me. I will, inshallah, be a father one day. I have to. I have to be a father. Like this, there is no future generation without us reproducing. There is none. Okay, whatever age you are, if you get to an adult age, right? If you don't ever reproduce, or especially within a certain window, a frame of time, depending on whether you're male or female or all the different factors, like there is no future generation. If that's important to you, you might want to start thinking about it ASAP. So, but luckily, there's a little bit more leeway for males, biologically speaking, than females. Don't shoot the messenger. Biology is biology. Okay, it doesn't have like biology doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have preferences or whatever it is. So yeah, if you like this episode, please hit the like buttons and subscribe for more. With that, I'm signing off. Just remember, just some perspective.